we all make mistakes. We all do whatever we think that is the right thing to do. But first and foremost, we have to play the hand we were dealt, not the imaginary kind of utopia idea of one's parenting style, but the reality of what it really is. And it's hard work and heartache, but the rewards are absolutely worth it.
We RAD Dads, bringing a soft edge to a hard topic. Join us every week as we talk to real people with real stories, from the everyday single parent to family professionals, and find entertainment along the way. Join me, Walter J. Eggers, as I discover and share wisdom. Positive changes start here.
Episode 57. Hello and welcome back again, Rad Dads. Walter Eggers here, bringing the nuggets. My guest this week, Chris Efessiou, a serial entrepreneur amongst so many other things, but an amazing rad dad, has some incredible nuggets this week, and we're going to jump right to it as soon as possible. But first, I want to make sure I share what some of the resources that you may want to know about, like, how about the We Rad Dads Facebook group? Guys, if you want a place, a tribe, a place to belong, where only single dad issues and non-traditional family issues preside, this is the place. I don't know about you, I get really upset, frustrated that is, trying to talk to quote-unquote normal parents. And a lot of times they just don't understand the struggles. That is the entire point of the We Rad Dads Facebook group. So head on over there and be part of our tribe. There's a lot of really awesome people, lots of former guests, and just concerned dads and moms, actually, who are just willing and waiting for someone to reach out for help. And, maybe you could be there when they reach out for help. So head on over to the We Rad Dads Facebook group, request to join, and I will add you. It's that simple. We have a couple other resources here. I really wanted to point out, and I do every time, the Amazon affiliates. This is what helps the show keep going. Very simple. If you use Amazon, which I hope you're familiar with that. If not, just email me. If you use Amazon, a portion of your purchase can go to We Rad Dads. It's not an extra cost. This is a portion that would normally just go to Amazon. So please support the We Rad Dads show. The affiliate link is on the homepage at www.weraddads.com. You'll see it there on the left, on every page, really. It's also in the quick links. And the quick links on the iTunes player are behind the colorful We Rad Dads player. Tap on the album art there, and a list of quick links will come up, including links to the show notes, which in this case is www.weraddads.com/Chris EF. And that's Echo Foxtrot, the letters CHRIS, Echo Foxtrot. Chris EF. I hope that was clear. Anyway, if you got any questions, email me. That's walter@weraddads.com. And that's pretty much the announcements for the week. I want to jump right into this, but first, let me just tell you a little bit about Chris. He's just an amazing dude, and I'm going to dive into this as soon as possible, but he is a PhD in health sciences. He's a negotiations architect, a marketing strategist, a speaker, a radio show host, and an author, a serial entrepreneur, founding a total of 8 companies, and building his first while he first found himself as a single dad to a daughter at the age of 7. So Chris knows a thing or three about not only business and parenting, and in fact, his book, Chief Daddy Officer, talks just about how the correlations in business and parenting are ironclad. They're gold. And he goes on to kind of tell us more about what that's all about. We talked about the cover of Fortune magazine and how that changed his life and in his role as a parent. We talk about perfection versus excellence. We talk about finding a family structure and the support in business, aligning the business with the family. You see how you don't go the other way. It's business with the family. I think that's the key. Being the positive example, the importance of incremental change and recognition. Guys, baby steps. This is what we're talking about here, and so much else. So, hey, buckle in, strap in, tune in, and take notes. You're going to need to. This is an amazing episode with Chris Efessiou. Hello and welcome back again, Rad Dads. Walter Eggers, charged and ready, and I have got a treat for you today. Today I have with me Chris Efessiou, who is a man of so many different accolades and hats. And to put it succinctly, the guy is a go-to for business and parenting. All right, that's the simplest I can put it. Chris, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Walter. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Chris, I just want to go over a couple of your accolades here because it's almost too numerous to list, and I am just blown away that you're able to join us here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. Chris, you're a PhD in health sciences. You're an entrepreneur many times over. You're a negotiations architect, a marketing strategist, a speaker, a radio show host by the name of Straight Up with Chris, an author of the book CDO, that's Chief Daddy Officer, The Business of Fatherhood, and you are currently president of SRXA, Strategic Pharmaceutical Advisors. Chris, that is just a huge list of accomplishments. Congratulations.
Thank you, Walter. Thanks for the introduction. That's an introduction that my father would have liked and my mother would have believed.
That's fantastic. And I think on some level we all aspire to make our fathers and our families proud, and so I'm really happy to hear you say that on several levels.
Absolutely.
Now you mentioned this. We were going over SRXA, your current business right now, and it's your eighth business, your eighth company.
Yes, it's the eighth company since 1991. There were another 7 companies prior to that. Most were in health sciences, consulting side, but there was one in financial services and one in technology. They were all spun off, merged, acquired, or in some other way, transferred ownership to others.
Sure.
So it's been, I'm the person that most people will call the quintessential ADD individual.
Well, you found a way to make it work for you, and I think that's really awesome. I think I have those proclivities myself to be a little bit of that same way, ADD, and I really want to find a way to leverage that for my benefit, both as a dad as a businessman as well.
I think that if you look at most successful entrepreneurs and most successful captains of industry, I would venture to tell you that most of them, they are either diagnosed ADD or they have it and they don't know it.
Yeah.
But, if ADD means you just do a whole lot of things at the same time and you have trouble kind of following them all at the same time, then you're probably it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and is that what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, or it's just kind of the people that you've surrounded yourself with?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I believe that it's easy to be a business person. It's a lot more complicated to be a leader, and entrepreneurship is not about business management. It's about leadership, because you're asking people to follow your dream, and the only person that truly knows your dream is you and you only, and perhaps a very short list of your closest coworkers. But at the end of the day, everybody is looking at your steps and following your steps, and unless you can do that, you cannot be successful. Most people today confuse management and entrepreneurship and management and leadership.
Yes.
And I can tell you that a successful manager can always manage, but one cannot always lead.
Yeah. And having both of those would, I think that's the recipe to be effective as an entrepreneur, as I understand it.
And as a parent, and as a husband, as a significant other, as a brother, as a sister, as a whatever. I'm here to dispel the myth that good personal relationships and good business acumen are mutually exclusive. They're not. In fact, they're one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the principle that you wrote your book off of, the CDO, the Business of Fatherhood, where I did a little bit of research and was looking at this article that really spurred it all for you. Where what was this? Grade A execs get an A, but an F as parents. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, this was the cover of Fortune magazine of the 1990s decade. I believe the cover of the magazine was dated January 1, 1990. My daughter was 2 years and 2 months at that point, and I had a new job as a pharmaceutical marketer. I was on a fast track to ascend to wherever the next step was, and I was spending an awful lot of time at the office, but at the same time, I really wanted to be at home because, while my career was very important, there was this little girl at home that was more important to me than any professional achievement. Yeah. And I kind of, at the end of the day, the magazine was in my inbox, and I just looked at it, and I noted that was speaking the truth, not only in the content of the magazine, but upon reflection, a lot of the people that I worked with, those who were at the time in their 50s or 60s that suddenly had grown children and perhaps many of them had grandchildren. Mm-hmm. They were workaholics that they got into the office, before dawn, and they were at the office at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that was day in and day out. Yeah. We all put in the long hours. We all have to. I mean, you can't entrepreneurship, running a business, doing well in a business that you work in is not something that you can do on a 9-to-5 basis, because it takes dedication, it takes time, but it does not have to be a 12-hour day every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. The hard work, you got to put it in there. You just got to, it sounds like, in breezing through a lot of your material, it seems like business principles of time management and schedules seem to play an important role in both, obviously, business and parenting. And especially when you combine those two as a single parent, which at some point in the future, and we're not going to get there yet, but at some point in the future, you found yourself as.
Correct. And I mean, it's, everybody has a starting point, and you either start as a parent or you start as a business person, or you start as a whatever, a professional. I apologize for the phones in the background. For some things I cannot control. But anyway, whatever your starting point is, the fact of life is that you can actually turn things off when you need to turn them off, mm-hmm. And lead with whatever it is that's important to you. And to me, business, of course, was important. Business was something that was part nature, part nurture. My father had his own business. I saw it happen. I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along with running your own business. And at the same time, he was a terrific dad. He was a very different dad than what I ended up being, because obviously, I was parenting, 30 years after the time he was parenting, and I was parenting in the United States versus Greece, which is where I was born and raised. So in between the time element and the mentality element, it was a combined, I want to say about 60 to 75 years forward jump for me, raising my daughter in the late 80s, early 90s versus, being raised in the late 50s. Mm-hmm. So you kind of take whatever it is that that your platform is, and you springboard from there. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It just sounds like you have to find a way to compensate and deal with the circumstances, the cards that you've been dealt, essentially. And it sounds like your paradigm of parenting, the example that you were shown, differed significantly from the eventual route that you had to devise and execute as a parent.
Yes, because and there's a number of different reasons to that. The primary reason was that I was raised as the oldest of three children in a nuclear family where the mom and the dad was there. Mom didn't work, took care of the house and my grandparents who lived with us. This is a very patriarchal, old world kind of way of raising a family. I come here as an exchange student to go to school, and then I meet my first wife, who was my daughter's mother, and we start a family, and this is happening in Boston in a very different kind of environment. So I both of us were working at the time. Then she stopped working and was taking care of our daughter. So there were some similarities. There were some differences. The primary difference was that I took what I thought that were the golden nuggets of the parenting that I experienced, and I dispensed with everything else. And it was plenty to leave behind. Particularly the style and the democratic versus autocratic kind of parenting style. Mm-hmm. I, of course, wanted to be more of the open person who didn't rule with an iron fist unless I had to, and then out it came. But the iron fist was not my first step.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully we can get into that. We all make mistakes. We all do whatever we think that is the right thing to do. But first and foremost, we have to play the hand we were dealt, not the imaginary kind of utopia idea of one's parenting style, but the reality of what it really is. And,
yes.
And it's hard work and heartache, but the rewards are absolutely worth it.
I love that. Thank you so much for emphasizing that point. I think that especially as a newly single parent, even married, it doesn't matter where you're at. You have this paradigm of this perfect life that you're supposed to be living at this point, and it never ever measures up. It never ever measures up, and you'll get this hand dealt to you, and it won't measure up. And you got to be able to figure out how to put the pieces together and make the moves, the strategic and tactical moves to get more toward where you want, keeping in mind that it'll never be perfect. I mean, in your experience so far, have you found the perfect situation?
No, I heard somebody tell me that there are no such thing as perfect parents. There are just parents who try hard.
Yeah.
I believe that is entirely true. I will add to that you're trying hard and you're driving toward what you think is the final outcome. And your outcome may be totally different than mine, the way we imagine it. But however we imagine it, the single largest difficulty, the thing that I had and most of us as single parents have experienced, is the fact that you cannot see it. You imagine it, but you can't see it. Mm. I would give you the analogy. I'm a pilot, and I fly I have an instrument rating, and you get that when you're flying in or above the clouds.
Yeah.
So you know where you want to go, but even then you have instruments that guide you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your instrument in parenting is good experience, a sound head, but most importantly, a cool head that will get you through the toughest times that you have to believe that even if it doesn't appear to be the right way while you're doing it, if your brain and your gut tell you that they are right, it probably is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really huge, is to be able to listen to your gut and your logic and reasoning. I think that's such a great comparison there. And for those of you who don't know, as opposed to VFR, instrument rating means that you're blinded, you're in the clouds. There's essentially like a blanket over the windshield, if it were, of the aircraft. And so this is what Chris is talking about here. I have pilots in my family, so I understand the terminology you're using. And add it to the list. I mean, what else can't you do, Chris? You're a pilot, you're a businessman, you're an awesome dad. Like, I am super excited to be able to talk to somebody who has so many diverse talents and the skills that you had mentioned. I wanted to get back to something that you had talked about, just touched on briefly, and get into our next segment here. And it's the perception of how your life is supposed to go. And at this point in your backstory, you're talking about being married and how things are just their life. Life is imperfect. And what I like to say here on We Rad Dads is the words of motivation or mantra, and that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. How does that resonate with you in your life as a dad, as a businessman?
It relates beautifully. I think that's exactly the mantra everybody should have. You cannot really prepare yourself or anybody for unexpected outcomes. You can be. I think it was FDR who said that we cannot prepare the future for the youth, but we can prepare the youth for the future.
Wow.
It's kind of that kind of mentality. It is. Things are going to happen. Life happens, and life doesn't happen according to a cookbook. We don't have that.
Yeah.
There is no such thing in parenting. There's no such thing in life. There's no such thing in relationships. There are all kinds of books and guides and this and that tell you that, what to do and how to do it. But they seem to miss one very important thing, and that is that every member of that culture, whether it is the child or the husband or the wife or whomever, they are their own individual, and with them bring their own individuality. If that happens to be different than me and my daughter who wrote the book, then the gist of it goes out the window. Mm-hmm. You keep the themes, but you cannot, again, this is not a recipe. You cannot really predict the outcome based on whatever the elements of that recipe happen to be. You will bake a cake, and that cake may flop at the end.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that's not going to be tasty. So the bottom line is that reacting to the situations, as your mantra is, and again, checking with your head and checking with your gut and making sure that the two are in reasonable synchrony. Mm-hmm. Is the way to go through life. And we should not be looking for perfection. We should be looking for excellence. There is a big difference between the two.
All right. I'm really glad you uncovered that. And I want to dive into that a little bit more. What is the difference between perfection and excellence?
Perfection is something that is not created by you. It is created by somebody else. If you knew what perfection is, you will be attaining it every single time. There is no sane person that can attain perfection but will not do it because they don't want to. Excellence is achieving the best you can do. So if you can achieve excellence in everything you do, well, guess what? You may have achieved perfection, your perfection. And if that perfection is yours, who else's perfection does it really matter?
Yeah, excellent point. Nobody's. You need to operate per your own perfection, and if that is a result of consistently operating under excellence, well, then so be it. And I think we each need to find our own our own perfect state of being, our own version of whatever success is.
Exactly.
Oh, love it. This is great.
And it differs from one person to the next, obviously. Again, you have to find your size, something that fits you like a glove, and wear it comfortably. And then to you, that's excellence. And to you, that's perfection.
I like it. So, okay, I'm going to take this analogy and I'm going to kind of wind it into our next segment, which is, you're talking about finding our own perfection and then handling what life comes with us. So I'm going to meld those two concepts together in the next question, which is the bomb crater. And this, in this case, would likely be the dissolution of the marriage and finding yourself as a single dad. So can you describe that situation and how not only you found yourself there, but what were your initial reactions? How did you how were you kind of spinning without traction? And then how did you figure out how to get traction and move forward from that point?
Well, for me, that was reasonably easy. I was the one that walked out of the marriage, and I did that because there were some significant emotional abuse issues toward me, and most importantly, toward my daughter. There were, and my hope, though I never, I can tell you in retrospect that that's what I was hoping and praying for, but my gut in my head said that the legal system will not allow me to do that, was that I was going to get custody of my daughter. It's very difficult to prove in a court of law emotional abuse. It's a whole lot easier to prove physical abuse, because there you have the scars and the bruises and this and that. But the emotional scars and bruises that hurt the most and remain always tender, they are not visible. And as a result, you can't just see them. So I was the one that caused that walked away. And there was an incredibly vitriolic divorce process that took 2 years, and was litigated from the bench in 2 different states, and from the pulpit in the church, and so on and so forth. That I thought for a very long time, with all the brainwashing that was happening to my daughter, I thought that I had lost her. And I thought that I did all of this for nothing. But things happen, and you can fool some of the people some of the times. But as the cliche goes, you cannot fool all the people all the time. Yes. So about a year or so into the process, my daughter had asked to spend more time with me. And by about 2 years into that, she made it very clear to the psychologist that was following her, and he was obligated, obviously, to transfer that to her mother, that she wanted to live with Dad. And so I find myself at the age of almost 40, with an 8-9-year-old child at the time, who has to be mom, dad, and everybody in between. And I have to parent her not only exclusively, but I have to parent her against the mother's vitriol. So if there was no bad influence coming that way, it would have been a whole lot easier. But I had to, in order for me to keep my head above water, I had to not only do what needed doing, but I had to undo the negative stuff at the same time. So it's like swimming upstream constantly and hoping you will not drown. Yeah. So, the crater to me was, okay, you got your wish. Here, you took these steps because you wanted a better life for your daughter and for you. Now you got it. You got your daughter. Now what do you do? And, it's difficult to single parent, whether you are man, woman, or the child. But it is, if you have not done that before, it is that much more spinning your psyche. And quickly I realized that, I have to start somewhere, and I have to fall back onto something that I know works. And what worked for me was business. Not business as in, the perceived coldness of running a business, because any good business manager, any good business leader will tell you that they lead from the heart. You cannot lead in any other kind of way, but you have to lead nonetheless, and you have to fall back on some things that make sense, like say what you mean and mean what you say. Mm-hmm. In business, there is no such thing as, you ask me something, I gave you an answer, then I change it tomorrow. And if you were to ask me, well, you said this yesterday, now you're saying something different today, I can't really tell you, well, I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
I can't really tell you that you've hurt my feelings, but I can do plenty to make sure that what I say, I do mean, or I don't say it. And I can absolutely do plenty to do and say things in such a way that I will not hurt your feelings and also will not hurt mine. So these were elements that during my marriage, I had been accused of loving my daughter and my business more than anything else. Well, that was partly true. Yeah, I loved my daughter more than anything else, but the business was kind of my mistress, because I knew what I was putting in and I knew what was coming out. And it was a direct correlation, and never the two went against one another.
Wow. Interesting. I want to reel it back a little bit to where you were talking about your daughter more and more chose to live with you. What tactics did you employ to be able to have her want to live with you, and or what was happening, at her mom's house? You mentioned emotional abuse. I would assume that would maybe have partially continued. I don't know, but what was it on your end that you were doing? I mean, because each of us, we only have complete control over ourselves. That's it. We can't control other people. But the fact that you were doing something, and I assume these principles, which you were just talking about, apply here. This is what you were able to have exercise your influence over, and your daughter was receptive to this. So what was it that you were doing that your daughter wanted to live with you instead of with mom?
Well, in a way, it was pretty easy. I was doing everything mom was not doing. I was not bed-mouthing mom. It took everything I had out of me not to do it, especially when she will come to me saying, well, mom said this and this and this about you. The immediate reaction, the human reaction, is to say, well, yeah, let me tell you about your mom.
Yeah, yeah.
But what and who are you helping? Yes, you may feel better for a nanosecond, but if you've got your wits about you, you're going to regret lashing back the moment you did it. But you can't take those words back.
Yeah.
And when you're speaking bad about mom, even though the child may not necessarily, they have shown you that they want to be with you because something is going on with the other parent, they don't want to have the other parent bed-mouthed. The key thing for me was this. I realized early on that children, not unlike animals, because we all are, mm-hmm. they learn a whole lot more by what they observe versus by what they hear, what they are told.
Yeah.
Most studies will show that we retain 90% of what we see and only 10% of what we hear. So if we refrain from saying the bad things, but provide the calm, nurturing environment to that child who is obviously going through a tough time, not of their own doing. That in and of itself creates a safe environment for them that allows them to feel that, hey, I can go to my dad or I can go to my mom. I can be with that parent at that time and not have to walk on eggshells, not have to say whatever about the other parent. And certainly I don't have to say good things or bad things about the other parent in order to look good to the custodial parent.
Yeah.
Because that also happens. A child feels that if that element of hatred is present between the two parents, and let's not fool ourselves. You don't get divorced because you continue loving one another. You get divorced because something has gone wrong. And if the divorce becomes nuclear, then it takes a whole lot of guts and stability, mental and physical and everything else, to stay on the path that you want to stay on and not falter. You do sometimes. The question is not whether or not you fall off the wagon. The question is, how quickly do you get back on, and how long do you stay on it before you fall off again? Because you will. You're human. So allowing that safe environment to happen was the key. And then I told my daughter back then that, look, I'm not going to go toe to toe with you about what you say, about what your mother says, or whatever. You've known me for your whole life. I'm going to let you judge and make the decision that I am the person that you always knew, or I'm the person that your mother tells you that I am. And you'll be the judge of that. I'm not going to tell you which one I am. You'll figure it out. And that took an awful lot of, it actually happened an awful lot faster than I was expecting. But I can probably credit that decision as the single most important decision of becoming a better, a more just person. Because I never believed that you can tell a child that, I can do this, but you can't do that because I'm the parent. So if something is wrong for one person, it should be wrong for the other person. And I'm not talking about privileges. Yes, I can stay later up at night because I'm an adult and you're not. And if it's time to go to bed, you will go to bed, whether you like it or not. That's not negotiable. But I cannot lie and then tell you that you shouldn't lie because it's a bad thing. Because children are not stupid. They're a whole lot smarter than we think they are.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to figure it out. And the question that kept me straight always was this: what would my comeback be if my daughter came to me and said, well, you told me not to lie because lying is not appropriate, good, moral, whatever, but you do it?
Yeah.
What would my answer have been? Well, I'm an adult and I can do it. Really?
Yeah, that's pretty weak.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot to that. And, you mentioned about, in our pre-conversation, you talked about how business, good business practices and good fatherhood practices are hand in hand. And you seem to lean on the business practices first, but how did you come upon the notion to essentially positively influence and allow just the decision to take that action, that allowing your daughter to decide for herself, and not defending yourself, not doing that, especially in a kind of a critical time where, she's being influenced by her mom, that sort of thing. How were you able to react appropriately in that moment? Was that exemplified by your parents or other people in your life, or was that a business practice? Where did you get that?
I didn't get it from my parents because, again, there was no opportunity, rather, to see that in my parents because my parents were not divorced. And again, it was a very different kind of parenting style. I always felt very confident about who it was that I was and who it was that I was as a person, as a human being. Being the first to admit that I am with plenty of faults, but with plenty of positives as well. And hopefully the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yeah.
So we all have some kind of balance. There is no person that is without fault, and there is no person that is completely faulty. Even the most terrible person will have one or two things positive about them. It may not count for much, but you will find them if you look for them. So my position was this. If I am happy with who I am, if I feel right with my decision, then I can do one of two things. I can sell myself to someone and say, here are my positives, and here is, what I can do, and here's what I don't do, and here's why this is good, and here's why that is not good. But those are features. And early on in my business life, I learned that features tell, benefits sell. So the benefit was, if I'm good, then why should I not be good to this kid so that they see the practical side of what being good means? What does that mean? It means that you respect them. You respect the child. You respect an infant. Respect it's given first and then it's earned. But it isn't the way we were taught. You have to respect your elders. You have to respect everybody.
Yeah.
And so if you respect the child and they feel the respect of an adult, have you ever apologized to a child? Next time you do something wrong, something really wrong, mm-hmm. that they can tell it's wrong. And it's usually something pretty foolish, that you called something wrong. You raised your voice when you shouldn't have, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you just take that child by the shoulders, go down to your knees if you have to, so you're eye to eye, not that 3-4 foot distance in between your eyes and his or hers.
Oh yeah.
Straight eye to eye, and say, I'm sorry, honey, I shouldn't have done this. I was wrong. It was my fault. They will not know how to handle it because those are words they don't hear from an adult. Certainly, they don't hear them from a parent. And so if I am willing to admit when I'm wrong, why wouldn't I admit it to this child? And frankly, I've never invested in anything that was more important to me than that human being. And I thought that if I do the right thing will be done for me. And I am here to tell you that the outcome has absolutely bypassed my wildest expectations.
Wow.
That is a relationship that I have today with my daughter, who is 29. She is married and she is expecting twins in a few months in the summer. And the closeness that I have had with this child from the age of 10 all the way through the terrible teenage years, through college, through after that dating, the husband she selected, the importance that I had as an advisor to her. My strongest position always was that this child will be a child for a whole lot less time that she will be an adult. So I would much rather be with her in a good relationship as an adult than as a child. But the problem is that oftentimes those two are linked together in such a way that you cannot separate them.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot be an ugly parent to a child and then expect that you're going to have a beautiful relationship in adulthood.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Boil it down here, I would say that acting with integrity to your own child and to yourself is going to pay huge dividends into the future. And to your latest point there is expecting to be able to be a part of a child's life, either as a child or as an adult, separate from one another, is impossible, basically impossible. And anytime you can end up spending with in your case, your daughter, in my case, my son, and do so at their level, treating them as the age appropriate, quote unquote, adult as you want them to become, I think that sounds like the recipe that you were able to figure out. And of course I use recipe loosely given our earlier conversation, but that is the guide, the principles to be able to have sounds like a wonderful relationship with your daughter at this point.
Indeed. And it actually goes, if I can encapsulate it in one way, it will be this. I think we as parents need to get out of the mindset that we're raising children. We're not raising children. We're raising adults.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree with you more on that point. Yes, I've always felt that way. So
here is where business really helped me. It's strategy and tactics. That's marketing 101. So if you have a challenge or an opportunity, you have to create a strategy to go after it, either minimize the challenge or capitalize on the opportunity. So the opportunity here was, I want this child to be a self-sustained, productive, honest adult with integrity and drive. That will be a happy human being. Mm-hmm. What is it that I need to do to get them there? And then you backfill it with whatever support you need to have to get them there. That is the kind of thing that you can actually do with your eyes open and with a flashlight, as opposed to flying in the clouds and not being able to see anything. Because you have just set the path now. You have just said, that's the picture that I want to create. So put the elements, take the color board out and the pencils and create that picture. So that's a very simplified way, but it really isn't, because all too often we tend to shoot from the hip. All too often we tend to be reactive, and reactive parenting is parenting waiting for trouble to happen.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I want to take it back because you mentioned this again now, the reactive parenting. Do you have a strategy for somebody who is typically reactive, pretty volatile, that sort of thing? What would you be able to tell, let's just say another single dad or something of that nature, who comes to you and says, I don't know how to stop being reactive? What would be the takeaway point that you would emphasize to them? What would be the tactic that you would suggest?
Ask them if they have a mirror, and ask them to put themselves in front of that mirror when they are reactive. Ask them to video themselves. Ask them to do something where they can actually see themselves. And then when they see themselves in a cooler state, ask them if they like what they see. And I can guarantee you they won't, because they already know they're being reactive. They already know they're being too hot-headed. They know that part of or all of what they are doing is not to their liking. But if you have ever taken a golf lesson and you went to a golf pro and the first thing that they did is they stuck a camera in you and they asked you to take a swing, and then you think that, man, you nailed that swing just because you make contact with the ball, and then you look at the camera and the video that they have just taken and you look how ugly you really look, then you say, oh, this is just terrible. And it is just a very different way of seeing yourself in a position where you, in your mind, you thought you were doing everything right.
Yeah.
And so there is no bigger convincing fact than seeing yourself doing the wrong thing, which is the same thing that you thought that you were doing right. No one can convince you except yourself.
Yeah.
So get convinced and employ technology from the low end, the mirror, or the video, or something, someone you trust who is present, someone, whatever that is, somebody, everyone can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And dissect that and do the anatomy of that reaction. And if you don't like what you see, fix it. And don't be surprised if what was the outcome of that reaction on your child, as soon as you fix yourself, that problem with the child will be fixed in whole or in part, but you will see a difference.
Awesome. Such a great tactic for dealing with that sort of thing. And it really comes back to being humble to yourself, being willing to see and or consider that maybe even in our earnest efforts that we're not doing the right thing, and approaching the fact that, even though we thought we were doing the right thing, we're not. And then now what are we going to do about it? Are we going to ignore it? Or are we going to take action on that? Are we going to boil it down to your golf swing example? We're going to boil it down to its roots. Am I lifting my foot? Am I bending my knees? I don't know anything about golf, by the way, but the analogy is that there's got to be maybe a few, but maybe what's the one thing that you can fix to fix 80% of your golf swing in this case?
Exactly. And you never fix everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Because everything in life is a sum of many components. And if you decide to change things all at the same time, you will find an outcome, but you will not know what caused that outcome. If I changed 3 things and I fixed 80% of what was wrong, but the other 20% still remains and they're not equally weighted, that 20% may be the most troublesome percent.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know which one of the 3 things you fixed gave you the outcome if you changed them all at once. So you just change things little by little, much like a chemist, one thing at a time, and you create the difference. You make the change, you evaluate it, and you move on. You don't need to, if you're going down the wrong way, you don't need to go down 100 miles on that wrong road to realize you're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
A mile or 2 will tell you that.
Nice.
What I'm saying is be open-minded and be alert. You cannot, as a parent, unfortunately, we do not have the, not luxury, but we cannot afford to be apathetic. We cannot afford to be passive. Raising adults is an active proposition, and you have to stay active and on your toes constantly.
Well said. And I'm learning this one firsthand. I came in with zero knowledge as a dad, and yes, this is all resonating so true for me. And I really appreciate, again, that you took the time out and you shared with us, all of these amazing principles. And I know we've just scratched the surface here, but I really wanted to reach out and thank you for acknowledge you for, first of all, like the struggles that you have endured, both professionally and personally. I know in growing 8 companies from foundations and raising a daughter, and having success as you have as a dad, as a man, as a businessman is no small feat. So I really wanted to congratulate and recognize you for that.
Thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome. Absolutely. I would love to keep going here, but we're going to have to wrap because I know that your time is important, and I just wanted to ask a few really quick questions here, and then we can, let the listeners know how to contact you and et cetera. So, you ready to jump into the quick answer section?
Sure.
All right. So, I think I know this one already, and you may have talked about it a few times, but what is your best parent skill or superpower?
My best parent skill or superpower is outthinking the child. You might say outsmarting them, but for better or worse, you were a child once as well. And what you did was new to you, but was not new to childhood. So if you know what you did and how you did it, and it turned out right or wrong, chances are good your child is going to do the same thing. They may do it a little bit differently. They may do it in a more updated way. They may do it more in an electronic way than the manual way, but the end result is the same. So stay alert, and stay present and focused, and know that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it probably is one. So outsmart them. It will not take very long until they realize that, hey, if I got caught doing this thing wrong and that thing wrong, why should I be trying doing other things wrong? Because I'll get caught again.
Right. Nice. Yeah. Draw upon your experiences as a child and a parent. That's great. As far as skills go, which is your worst and how do you mitigate it?
My worst skill, it was, we spoke about that earlier. I was a little bit too hot-headed at the beginning and a little bit expectant of that because I was the dad and I was the parent, my word will be listened to without questions.
Yeah.
That is wrong in its foundation, and yelling and raising the tone of voice and becoming just hot-headed does not get you to where you need to be. In my book, there are a whole lot of those types of examples. The best way that I found how to mitigate it is to agree to disagree. If you and I don't agree on something and a good amount of time has been spent discussing it, we'll table it for today, but we're going to come back tomorrow at such a time and discuss it again. And then it will be your charge to convince me and my charge to convince you. And if we fail again, then we do it again from the beginning. Of course, that does not apply to things that are important, things that deal with, legality and motherhood and apple pie and all of those kinds of things that we know that they are right or wrong, that as a parent, it is your duty to teach your child. We're talking about the softer things, but most of parenting is the soft stuff, not the hard stuff.
Yeah. No. Great. Do you have a bucket list item for yourself and your family at this point, or you and your daughter? And what is that thing?
Well, it's about to be filled pretty soon. My wish was that I get a grandchild so that I can actually experience parenthood through her eyes again.
Yes.
And I am told that she is expecting twins, and so the bucket would not only be filled but would be runneth over. So it's so I that is the part that I really the wish that I could not attain on my own, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of other stuff that goes along with that, and then you say, well, if I want to have an active role in the children's lives, then I should probably be taking better care of myself. And funny thing, you end up going to the gym a little bit more frequently and doing the things you hate doing. So, it's always an effort it goes both ways.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a huge congratulations. And I've been told that, in becoming a grandparent, you really see the result of being a good parent, because that's then passed down and you get to watch that happen, that interaction between, in this case, your daughter and her children. So highest congratulations. And I'm sure that's going to be just an amazing thing to bear witness to.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go quickly over your book. I noticed that before we close here, it's your book, the CDO, Chief Daddy Officer, The Business of Fatherhood, is cut into two parts. There's part 1 and part 2.
Yes.
What are the gist of those two parts?
The part 1 is usually, it is typical in broad terms, is the most typical, most basic years, the foundation that needs to be laid early on. And then part two is, I don't want to say more interactive, but it's more applied to a teenager, and both the good, bad, and the ugly stuff that they do, and how you can mitigate those. One is strategy and planning. Two is the execution of those tactics and how you can evaluate them and measure them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it sounds like a pretty good manual, if there were such a thing, for parenting. And it sounds like it's going to cover basically all ages. So that's a really good guide. And it's available on Amazon and Kindle. Are there other outlets that we can get the book?
iTunes, iBooks carries it as well, both in hardcover and Kindle.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Really an absolute pleasure to make contact with you, to talk about parenting mostly, and a little bit of business too. Of course, I have a ton of questions, but we're going to have to wrap it up for now. Is there anything that you want to leave us with, anything we didn't cover, or a parting piece of guidance for our listeners?
Remember, your children are smarter than you think they are, or that you ever gave them credit for. And I know that if you're newly divorced and you're going through this path alone, you think that the road will never end and the misery will be yours forever. As Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Yes.
It does get better. That day does come. And whether your relationship with your child stays strong or diminishes or gets hurt or is totally destroyed, really is up to you and how you handle your own self in your own life. So they are watching always. Stay alert and give yourself a pat on the back, because through thick and thin, you are doing the right thing and things will get better.
Awesome. Well said. Could not agree more with all of that. Again, I can't say it enough. Thank you and congratulations for your successes. Really appreciate you having on the show. And, I'd love to be able to reach out and maybe we can talk some business next time as well. I'd love to know more about your entrepreneurial endeavors and what it takes to be a good, not only father, but a good businessman as well.
Anytime, you know where to reach me. I'll be happy to come back on.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.
Guys, what did I tell you? All right. Did you take notes? You probably should have. If not, go back and check it out. If not, check out the show notes at www.weraddads.com/Chris EF. That's CHRIS Echo Foxtrot EF. Because Efessiou is it's a little less common and probably misspell that. But hey, it's in the quick links. Go over to the quick links to check out the links to our Audible trial, to the Amazon to our Amazon affiliates link. And hey, while you're there, just bookmark that page. So if you go to Amazon quite a bit, bookmark that particular link, and hey, you're signed up with the affiliate every time you go to Amazon, and that would be great. So yeah, oh man, there's so much to unpack. The business and parenting, and I love how when you were talking about how to turn things off when you don't need them and basically open up your bandwidth, a lot like your wireless router. And right about then is when the telephone starts ringing in the background, right? How ominous is that? He turned it off. He just didn't answer it. And that was super cool how that all played out right there. Talking about where you are, starting where you are. Like, there is no good starting place. There never is. And then springboard from there. And this is something I like to call, especially recently, that I'm probably going to do some sort of a post or something on. It's the ratchet effect. And those of you who know how, small tools like actual ratchet set, it's the same thing. It moves incrementally in a direction, and you just don't go back. So it's a hard stop. And that's something I'm applying in my life, is to ratchet myself forward. Talking about, I love how he wove the idea of IFR, instrument flight, where you don't have any vision. How he wove that back into the conversation at the end, and it was such a poignant moment. This is a big one that I've been really struggling with lately. I think incrementally, intermittently as well, yes. Being happy with who and where you are, and how that directly correlates to being a good parent. Guys, take stock of where you are, how far you have come. There's a couple of things that are, we're starting to recognize a few patterns here. So, go easy on yourselves, guys. Incremental change. And the other thing was what I like to call the reaction refraction, the mirror exercise. When you're reacting, go look in a mirror or video yourself. And this is amazing takeaway right there. And try it. Or even just think about doing it while you're in that state. I mean, just the thought of recording yourself. I feel silly. Looking back on when I lose my stuff, I feel absolutely silly. And I'm sure if I were to record it or look at myself in the mirror, I would feel even worse. So, guys, use that. Put that tool in the toolbox, so to speak. Just an amazing resource, Chris. I would love, and I'm hoping to be able to talk to him in the future about business and some other things, perhaps. So if you like this, let me know. Reach out. That's Walter at weraddads.com, or hit me up on the Facebook group, the Messenger, or just the board over there. If you're not a member of the We Rad Dads Facebook group, just request entry, and that's it. There's no tax or penance or anything like that. It's not like a paid site or anything. Just request, and you shall be admitted. Unless, of course, you're, trying to sell us counterfeit Ray-Bans or whatever. Yeah, I've overused that one, I know, for the long-term listeners. But, hey, guys, some parting wisdom for you, straight from Chris, via Chris, from Winston Churchill. Guys, if you're going through hell, keep going. Just keep going. We can all do this together. And if you need support along the way, hit us up. We Rad Dads Facebook group. Guys, keep fighting the good fight. It is totally worth it. And I'm here for you in the trenches, right beside you. Guys, stay up, stay connected, and stay Rad Dads. Take care.
Well, that's it for this episode of We Rad Dads. I sincerely thank you for joining us. Don't forget to look us up at www.weraddads.com. There you can find links to our Facebook page and Twitter account. Got a question or comment? It may be featured. Email me, Walter, at weraddads.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, stay up, stay connected, and stay rad, dads.